Evelyn, the Prime Minister has just spoken. What has Mr Albanese had to say?
That's right. Anthony Albanese has just confirmed on radio that the Australian Bureau of Statistics will test a new question ahead of the 2026 census on sexuality. And as you point out, Dan, the government has been facing major backlash from within its own ranks from 6 Labor MPs, as well as advocates from the LGBTI plus community and the Sex Discrimination Commissioner as well. Now, adding an extra question or questions on sexuality and gender identity was a commitment that Labor made in its National Party platform, and there were certainly calls to do so after the 2021 census to better include and better collect data on that community, particularly because that sort of data is used for governments to make policies, decide on services, programs, that sort of things. So we've just heard from the Prime Minister saying that testing this new question, he says, is a common sense thing to do, but did point out, to quote him, that there won't be holus bolus changes to the census. So just looking at this one question for now that'll be tested. If that testing is successful, the federal government will look to add that question to the census through the Bureau of Statistics. This is the Prime Minister speaking just now.
As long as the testing goes okay and a question can be developed in a way that is sensitive and that gets the information that is required, and the ABS will be testing that. There's a draft question has been developed this week, which they will go and test.
And Evelyn, this follows major criticism from the Sex Discrimination Commissioner Anna Cody. Why did she say that extra questions were so important?
She was scathing when she spoke on ABC News Breakfast earlier today. She said that collecting comprehensive and inclusive data through the census was really important to ensure that those services and policies that the government uses that census data to make decisions about, that is there and that it is inclusive of the LGBTI plus community. So she had written to the federal government calling on it to reconsider this decision and add those extra questions in. She did also point to, after the 2021 survey, there was actually a complaint made to the Australian Bureau of Statistics around the framing of questions and the inclusivity of questions. And then she did respond to comments from government ministers, including the Treasurer Jim Chalmers, who said the reason that the government hadn't gone ahead with adding changes was because they wanted to avoid divisive debate. She said in response to that she didn't think that was going to be the case, that was sort of a limited approach in response to that. And then she went on to actually accuse the government of not being inclusive of LGBT communities, pointing to the fact that the government has also shelved progress on religious discrimination, which would have seen protections for LGBTI people within schools as well. So here's Commissioner Anna Cody speaking earlier.
The LGBTI plus communities are calling to be included, so it really is a little patronising and paternalistic to then say, because of the possible harm to those communities, therefore we won't include them at all. That is really harmful, actually, excluding a whole area of our community, a whole group of our community. So that is not a sufficient excuse to do that. And in fact, it may actually amount to unlawful discrimination to exclude one whole section of our community from a really important document in which we collect valid and important evidence for making those policy decisions.
So it's those comments from the Sex Discrimination Commissioner, 6 Labor MPs, and then others from the coalition ranks as well, calling on the government to relook at this decision. And of course, I should mention the crossbench as well, who's been very vocal on this, calling on the government to reconsider, and that's what the Prime Minister has done this morning, confirming that the ABS will look to add a new question to the census on sexuality in 2026.
Evelyn Manfield reporting.